the Spoiler Podcast. Today we're talking about X-Men Days of Future Past, and I've got a riveting, exciting panel of folks to talk about this film. First off, we got Dan Torrey.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome back, Dan.
Thank you. I almost didn't make it to this one. I'm excited to be here, though.
We got Beware the Steve Baxi.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Alex, for that tag.
We got the Superhero Enthusiast.
Hey, Bubs.
And we've got the magnanimous TheRealManos.
Hello, folks. How are you?
Shades unfortunately couldn't make it. I'm not sure why. He was supposed to be here, and we've been waiting for him, and I'm not sure where he is. So hopefully Shades is all right. We're gonna be talking obviously for probably about an hour or so. So he might pop in. Hopefully that happens. But anyway, why don't we go ahead and just jump straight into it? X-Men Days of Future Past came out last week. And I've seen it twice. I'm sure some other folks here have seen it more than once. I've already done a quick review, so I want to go ahead and open up the floor and get some quick general reactions. This was the big one that I was looking forward to most. And what I want to know is if it was everything everybody else expected. Let's start with Dan, because I opened the thing with Dan. Dan, you and I had a lot of really high expectations for this. You and I had a lot of conversations about this before it came out. And was it everything you were hoping for?
Yeah, it was, and more, I think. This is, in my opinion, and I know I've been saying this about like Cap as well. This is probably one of my favorite comic book movies so far. I mean, I'm a pretty big X-Men fan. I do like the X-Men quite a bit. I enjoy reading their comics. I haven't read everything, but I do like them and enjoy them quite a bit. And this was like the most X-Men team movie that we've ever gotten. Wolverine isn't the centerpiece of it, and all the other characters get enough to do that I feel like I'm satisfied, and I liked that about it quite a bit at the very least.
Steve, what was your reaction walking out? Were you excited? Were you bouncing off the walls like I was?
The first time I was. I loved it to death the first time. I saw it again today, and I still really, really like it. I don't think it's great, because I've had a couple issues here and there, but like Dan said, it's definitely like one of the best representations of X-Men on screen. I'm a little less enthusiastic simply because I felt like I could die happy with Winter Soldier. So I'm glad this came out. I think it's good. I think it's really, really good, and I have a lot of positives. It's just I'm not like as blown away as I thought I was going to be.
Alex, what was your immediate reaction?
There are giant purple genocide robots in this movie, and that's all I've ever wanted. So I'm a happy customer.
Alex, I've always considered you one of the more thoughtful people I know, and that being your whole, I mean, we got Sentinels, so I'm good. Manos, how did you feel walking out?
I tend to have a wait and see attitude for X-Men movies ever since X-Men 3. So it was Captain America was the one I was most excited about, but this one really did exceed any expectation I had. I thought it was a fantastic movie.
So the reason that I was so jazzed for this, of course, was just getting to see, Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen in those roles again, because we didn't think that was ever going to happen. And also to see Bryan Singer back at the helm. And Bryan Singer already kind of got his stamp back on the franchise by co-writing First Class, and in my personal opinion, that was finally steering things back in a more interesting and character-driven direction, and not too many characters all thrown in your face where they're all supposed to be super important, and so none of them are. This was in a lot of ways like for me like a cool crossover movie. It'd be like if you took your two favorite franchises that should never go together and you put them together. And weirdly, in my mind, we kind of have that with X-Men, because I love First Class and I love X-Men 1 and X-Men 2, especially X2. And like to get those two things together like that, was an exciting prospect, and I think ultimately it delivers pretty solidly on it. I want to talk about, and I'll open this to the floor. I want to talk about the directing. First and foremost, because that's the big thing is the big change here is going back to the guy we started with all those in 1999. So I felt like he directed this a lot like he directed X2, and I felt like there was a lot of really interesting, different, innovative stuff brought in, especially like with the way he put together that scene with Quicksilver and the slow motion stuff, like just some really unique, different sorts of things bringing this back. Are so like how do you guys feel on the directing side? Is he as good as he was back during the X2 years?
I think he's actually better. I've always felt Bryan Singer's had somewhat of a more of a TV kind of somewhat claustrophobic cinematography, and this movie felt much more cinematic to me.
Anybody else? Just jump on.
I agree. This is definitely X-Men 2 Singer, and I think it's even an improvement on his work in that film. Really, I thought he did a good job juxtaposing the two timelines, keeping what could be a confusing mess pretty well balanced, so you don't feel lost. And they also had their own flavors too. The future time, the present time at the end, and of course, the 70s. I thought he really, I don't know, maybe he's had some successes and failures in the last few years, and I think he's progressed as a filmmaker, and I think this shows.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. Like, the action in this movie, I think, is the best Bryan Singer action I've ever seen. I was completely blown away with some of the fight scenes, and especially my favorite action sequences was my favorite one was at the end when Magneto pulls the entire stadium and puts it around on that little bunker that Nixon's in. It's so theatrical, and you get like the American equivalent of like a Coliseum. Magneto has his audience. It's so comic book and over the top, but tense at the same time. I don't know. That was one of my favorite scenes of the movie.
Yeah, and you wouldn't expect that to be more epic than him moving a whole bridge, but it was.
It was, yeah.
It's definitely a topper of that. Because I remember while he was doing that, I was wondering, what is he doing with this stadium?
Supervillains just hate stadiums.
I know they don't. They just don't like them. And when he finally planted it around the White House, I was pretty impressed with that.
Yeah, that whole scene was exciting. I kept being surprised by action all the way through, where I think that he might go one way and he'd do something else. I was very surprised by how much I enjoyed Quicksilver, especially action wise. But like, there was a character that I was like, well, he looks sort of silly, and like before we saw it, and then I thought that he as a like comic relief character wasn't too much of that, but was also hilarious and helped to bring that. Like I felt like X2 had a lot of really good comedy in the midst of really heavy ideas, and I felt like this was another great example of that. And I think one of the big things we've been missing from the X-Men films since Singer left.
Yeah, and a big part of that comedy for me was putting Wolverine in the role that he's supposed to be in, and on the X-Men team is like the guy that stands around in the background and says like quips that are sort of gruff and hard edged and stuff. I don't know. Like, I really enjoyed that Wolverine was more in his comic book role here than anything else.
Yeah, this
Hey,
feels like the most accurate version of Wolverine that we've seen.
Yeah, definitely.
Shades, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
There he is.
Hey.
Shades is here. Before we go any further, and Shades, we've only been talking about for about 10 minutes, and we haven't gotten real far in. We were mostly just talking about Bryan Singer's direction and him coming back to the project. But why don't we get your initial 2 cents before we get rolling into this? How did you feel walking out of the theater the first time you saw it, and was it everything you were hoping for?
Yeah, it's really interesting because the first time I saw it, I kind of just had to sit there during the credits and take it in because it was really the film that I'd hoped for, and I was so happy and satisfied with the ending, especially for many reasons. And it was exactly the film I wanted to see. I don't know how a lot of you guys feel, but I know a lot of people see this as the best X-Men film yet, and X2 is still my favorite, but this is such a close second, and it's just such an enjoyable film and an emotional film, and I really loved it.
Well, I'm just excited to hear you say that, Shades. Just knowing how big of an X-Men fan you are, you know, sometimes I have that with these things with people I know that I consider kind of experts. Well, I'll go see a Spider-Man film, like, well, I enjoyed that, but I'm afraid I'm going to hate it after I talk to Dan. With this, and we'll talk about criticisms later, because what's really interesting is there are a number of things I can point to and say, you know, here's a thing that seems a little cheap that I'm not sure about, and here's another thing. We'll get into all that stuff. I have criticisms of this film, but none of it hurt my enjoyment of it. It totally took me out, and also none of it made me stop caring about the people I cared about. I think this is a fantastic Professor X character study. And you know, yes, we've had that before, but here it's very different. And I found myself really being like taken in and resonating with Xavier having to find himself and not feeling like he had it anymore with what he used to be good at. Boy, did that speak to me really hard.
Yeah,
I felt like this was really his movie. Because I feel like First Class is somewhat Magneto's. It's how he becomes Magneto, and this is how Xavier becomes Professor X. Because he learns to hope again.
I also agree. With First Class being more of Magneto's film, and this one being Xavier's film, something that struck me very early on, maybe even before midway point of this film, was I was thinking 72 was such a perfect time for this setting because it actually mirrors Xavier's story kind of mirrors, I guess, the baby boomer hippie movement actually at that time because there was a lot of optimism in changing the world and making the world a better place. And then there was defeat after defeat. There was the assassinations of JFK and Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and there was Vietnam and worsening, Nixon getting reelected as Altamont. There was horrifying, like, soul-killing defeat after defeat, and actually that kind of happened to a whole culture of people in this movement. Where in the early '70s, a lot of them kind of were like Xavier. They had pretty much given up. They had really kind of fallen into downward spirals of drugs, and you know where it was just where at first it was supposed to be opening up your mind, and now they were just trying to escape and becoming kind of just lowlifes and homeless and thugs, and that's almost pretty much where we see Xavier at this point, and which is why when Wolverine comes back into his life, you know, after turning him down. Now he comes back to him with this crazy story that, okay, I'm not physically from the future, but my mind is, and we have to stop this guy from making these robots. Which is of course a story that would obviously I would believe that. If somebody told me that. But we're watching him like hope again, and I really like that line about, you know, I need you to hope again, and that's to me the heart of the story.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I like that that's in the movie, but it's not necessarily all in your face about that kind of stuff. You can kind of enjoy it as a fun X-Men popcorn kind of movie and as a character study of Xavier. But if you're privy to all the cultural stuff that surrounding the period piece aspect of it, you can catch on and see the parallels. That's a really good point.
And that's one of the things that going back in time with these has really afforded us. Like, I felt like that was just building on First Class doing the exact same thing. Because I feel like First Class being set in the 60s with what X-Men is all about immediately is going to conjure ideas about, like, you know, civil rights movement and race riots and stuff. And yet none of that's really in the movie. Like, it's not about that stuff, but it is about that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like they do the same thing by putting into the 70s. If they go to the 80s, I'm really interested to see what they do. What the next thing is. Probably urban violence would be my guess.
No, it'll be about Reaganomics. It'll be really
It'll be
boring.
about Reaganomics.
Or it could
Okay.
be about AIDS.
That's
Or it
true.
could be about AIDS. Actually, that makes a lot of sense.
Yes, it does.
Manos, here I am trying to make a joke, and you got to make it work.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're right. Actually, that probably is where they'd go.
Well, didn't they have the legacy virus or something like that?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good point.
Yeah, that is a good point. No, one of my favorite things about going back in time has been this alternate history stuff and how clever they've been with that, and like finding ways to do that without it being silly or goofy. When we got the viral marketing and knew already that they were going to do something with Magneto and JFK, I was like, really? That's like the most obvious possible thing that you could go to. Everybody does the alternate, JFK conspiracy thing, and then they blew my mind with what they did with it.
What I
It's
liked
pretty
about
genius.
it was when they initially announced it, it was like called the bentbullettheory.com or something like that, and I was like, oh, well, I know it's done 1,000 times, but Magneto's the one character you can do something interesting with for that, and then it wasn't sort of shoved down your throat in the film. It was a very it was a brief exchange about it, and it gave him a reason to be in prison and all that. And I really liked that. And you'd believe that would be something that could be covered up because mutants aren't, they don't exist to the general public yet.
Well, I liked how cool of a twist it was without just being like an irritating, contrived kind of twist. Like not only is the JFK assassination something that kind of spearheads the government wanting to do something about mutants, which makes a lot of sense. But also, I love the idea that Magneto wasn't actually trying to kill him. When I was like, that's such a cool idea. No, I was trying to save him. JFK was a mutant. That is the neatest idea ever. I like it's so cool. I was sitting in the theater, and when we got to that line, it blew my mind, and I out loud said, "Wait, so what kind of power did he have?" And the dude sitting next to me that I didn't know, this guy just sitting next to me, he looks over and without skipping a beat, he says, "Politics."
Sex appeal, obviously.
That's
Unique way to say Cuba.
That's not a very good. That's not a very good mutant power politics. That's like your mutant power being mowing the lawn.
I can do it without a lawnmower. It's awesome.
Whoa! And you know what? There's something interesting about that because I remember a book a couple of years ago that came out that discusses JFK's medical problems, and actually he had a series of medical problems that were far worse than the public were privy to. And maybe that could have been part of his problem. Maybe he had some sort of mutation that
That's
was
fascinating.
repeating.
So I don't know. I mean, just that thoughtful stuff, like that's so cool. It's not gimmicky. It's not cheap. We're not pretending like something is really clever that isn't. Yeah, I don't know. All that stuff was really exciting to me. And I don't know. I'm gonna pick a random aspect of this and let's just roll with things. I was surprised by how much I like Trask.
I was
Yeah.
surprised by how much he was in the film as well. I thought Peter Dinklage was a really interesting choice. He's a great actor, and he completely knocked it out of the park. He was great.
There's a character that I was really sad that I didn't think we'd ever get to see because there is a Trask in the first X-Men film that's a throwaway character.
No, Trask is in X-Men 3.
Oh, is he? I thought there was a character mentioned in like a helicopter or something that was also.
That's Gyrick. Gyrick's in
Oh,
X-Men
that's
1.
Gyrick. That's Gyrick. Thank you. I forgot. Yeah. Okay. You're right. So Trask was. Oh, and you know what? You and I have talked about this, right?
Yeah.
Because we're like, there's no way that he's related. So there's two random Trasks.
Yeah, it's funny. I saw a fan-made poster. You know how you've got the original posters that they released for the film with McKellen and Fassbender and McAvoy and Stewart. I saw one with the actor from X-Men 3 and Peter Dinklage. It was very funny because one is a large African American man, and the other is Peter Dinklage. So
That's the funniest thing. You got to send me that. That's awesome. But no, I thought his worldview was really interesting. There are so many parallels all over the place to the interesting stuff they did with Stryker in X2, and with him, the whole idea of no, I don't hate mutants. It's just that it's us or them because of the way evolution seems to work and survival of the fittest. And so, what if we just used, we're gonna have to kill them anyway if we don't want to die. So what if we just used them for a common cause for humanity to band together? So his whole thing is, in a twisted way, also about hope. This is the one thing we've ever had that can band all the world together. I love that. It's terrifying.
And it goes horribly wrong. That's one of the things I really liked about this movie was that we had huge stakes with this apocalyptic type of evil future coming up. We have three antagonists, if you want to call them that. Three villains. We got Mystique, Magneto, and Trask. But none of them are really truly evil.
Right.
They're all doing what they think is the right thing.
Well, Mystique is such a wild card.
Yeah, she's always been, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what's so great about it. I mean, like, I felt like subtly with a lot of characters, they managed to, within the same continuity as we've always had, get them to more of the place that maybe comic fans would have liked to have seen them. And I mean, like, that's not why the movie works, because I mean, there's a lot of changes, in adapted films from comics I love and don't care that they're changed, but it's a nice added bonus. I mean, like, Mystique really felt like comic book Mystique by the end of this movie.
It was cool because she also seemed like Rebecca Romaine Mystique as well. Whereas in First Class, I wondered how are these two characters the same? How like are we going to see how she like the Jennifer Lawrence X-Men First Class Mystique progresses into the Mystique from the trilogy? And they did that really well here, and they also incorporated Mystique's storyline from the Days of Future Past comic, which I definitely didn't think they were going to do. Obviously, she's not trying to assassinate Senator Kelly in this film; it's Trask, but that really worked, and that being the catalyst for the Sentinels being built and having these scary, shape-shifting Sentinels, I really liked that.
And
Yeah,
to just throw.
sorry,
Sorry,
go
what?
ahead, Steve.
Yeah, sorry. I keep phasing in and out of the call because I have a bad connection right now. But to throw in with your Mystique point, the fact that the whole movie is about like hinges on her choice of what she's gonna do, and we have Trask and Magneto on one end of that saying that no, they were obligated to do this one thing and they're forced to save their race, and Professor X coming on the exact opposite end at the end of the film saying no, the future is not truly set, and just having Mystique in the middle going left or right, say which choice is it, and it's a really cool dissection of whether or not it's free will or determinism, and it all hinges on her.
Yeah, and then they build on that with the way the time travel works.
Yeah, with the two timelines that eventually have to converge because of choices that are made in the past or future.
But also that they actually deal with what kind of time travel is it? Is it Star Trek time travel or is it time machine time travel? And I love that they did that they have that conversation with Beast about it. At the very same time as there's a Star Trek episode about time travel.
That got a huge laugh in my cinema.
I love it. Well, and the reason it's great is because like Singer gets this stuff. He gets that he's not the only person that's ever made a time travel movie, and that you've got to set rules. Now, when we get to criticisms a little bit later, I've got some questions about the rules, but at least we know what they are. And that we're not entirely sure how it all works until we get to the end. So, Beast thinks that maybe it's that theory of you can't really change anything. Like you can go back and make little changes, but the big stuff is going to wind up that way, and there's nothing you can do about it. And time itself becomes almost a character, because in that scene you have Professor X say, "Well, Beast, not only do I not believe you're right about that, but I also don't believe that Mystique is the way she is. I don't believe that she is a killer and she can only be that way. I think she has a choice, and I think we can change time." And so time itself becomes kind of a reflection of the notion of the optimism of people have the choice to do the right thing or the wrong thing, and no one is truly evil, and the future is not truly set. So like, I thought it was just, again, the word of the day is thoughtful. I thought it was really thoughtful to make the time itself a reflection of that idea.
Yeah, I thought there was a lot of things in this movie that were very thoughtful and kind of subtle in that they weren't spoon feeding the audience about some of the things that were going on with the characters, but if you were paying attention, you could see what was going on. I appreciated that quite a bit, especially with Magneto. Like, you see him looking at some of well, we see what Trask is doing to some of the mutants he experiments on, and they're very similar to like the things that Nazis would do to some of their captured people in the concentration camps and stuff. And you get to see like a guy that's lived through that, look at that, and be like, ah, this isn't a guy that we can continue to operate and stuff like that, obviously. But for him, it hits him home a little bit more, and that's why he's so obsessed with it and going after him. And that's just one of the various things I noticed with him specifically that I picked up on motivation wise. But I thought that stuff was really cool. It gave the audience a lot of credit, if you know
Yeah.
these characters and where they're coming from and where they're going.
Yeah, I loved how they didn't like spell that out.
Yeah,
They did give
exactly.
us some credit.
Yeah, the same thing is true of Mystique going through the pictures of the characters from First Class that got killed. Because she doesn't come right out and say this person died and this person died and this person died until the airplane, I think, or someplace else. I forget where it was, and so I remember watching the movie and thinking, when she's looking through the pictures and thinking, there are people in this audience that. You guys with me?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, that was scary.
Yeah, Manos' computer is really loud right now.
Oh, mine is?
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the things I
anyway,
really liked about the way this movie was written too is I don't know, I was just thinking about this when I was watching the movie, and it's hard not to compare these to the movies that have come out previously in the summer. And I think of the ones I've seen so far, the weakest in terms of the way the story was structured was Amazing Spider-Man 2. And I think
by far.
where I did like that movie and I did enjoy it, it's definitely the one with the most problems. And I think the thing that X-Men had on its side was they weren't afraid to just take the original premise of the story, like time travel happens and we need to change the future and run with it. Whereas Amazing Spider-Man 2 had plot points it needed to hit and then wrote around them. This one didn't specifically stick to any plot points. It took things from the comics that it thought would serve the story they were trying to tell, but they just ran with that premise, and I appreciated that quite a bit. It surprised me because, as someone who's read the comic book, I don't necessarily want to go in and see the same exact thing.
And the thing about the Days of Future Past comic as well is that it is fairly short. I mean,
Yeah, it's
Days
only
of
2
Future
issues.
Past was the name of one single issue, and then the other issues that take place within that story are called other things. So like, it is a very short story, and like I said earlier, I liked how they incorporated the Mystique assassination part of it. And I knew that obviously Kitty wasn't going to have the role that she had in the comic, but she still had a big role in this, and I liked that. And to your point, Dan, when you compare this film to the two comic book films that have come out this year, I mean, I felt like X-Men tried to do about as much in terms of story and with its characters as Spider-Man did. But the problem I found with Spider-Man was that it was so convoluted that it didn't know what the film really wanted to be. Whereas X-Men had uh, a clear goal for what it wanted to achieve, and it used its characters to achieve that goal. And I really appreciate how Bryan Singer in X-Men 2, especially in this, he manages to find great ways to put multiple characters on screen together without it feeling contrived or forced.
And
And
in that
whether
way, it's
that's
really simpler to Winter Soldier, where the action isn't there because it's obligatory. It's there because the characters have some real drama and conflicts and motivations, and every action scene is contributing to some other major plot point.
Yeah, and it's almost harder with time travel, because with Winter Soldier, you're talking about just like, a concept. It's okay, well, it's a spy thing. It's an action movie, so we're going to tell an actual story and then have the action, actually serve that story. With X-Men, you have to do the same thing, but you also have this added thing of how do we make the time travel not just like look like a gimmick? How many movies have you seen that are time travel films that are just about the novelty of time travel? It's really, really hard not to do that. And one of the most fascinating things about this movie is that it is just like Star Trek, except I think done about 1,000 times better, a reboot inside of original continuity. I mean, we're not fully starting over, but we are starting some things over. But not only did we A, get to actually see it happen fully on screen, but B, it's about stuff. You know, I mean, like it's done in a character-driven way. How do you reboot in a character-driven way? I've never seen that done.
I mean, it's been tried a lot, but this is the one successful one I've seen,
That's
definitely.
what I'm saying. I never actually seen it done right. Yeah.
How do you guys feel about this somewhat being a reboot and the fact that X-Men 1, 2, and everything hasn't, no longer has happened in this continuity?
See, I should hate that because X2 is like one of my favorite things of all time.
Yeah,
so
same.
I should like, oh man, William Stryker didn't actually do all the stuff that he did. But to quote Nero from Star Trek, no, it did happen. I was there. That's what's so great about it is that all of those things had to happen to get us to the place where we were. Now, I could criticize it a little bit for like the actual catalyst of it not being something from those movies. What I mean is, it's not like there was a thing that happened in X1 or X2 or X3 that got us to the evil future, or to the scary future, where like we had to go back and fix those movies. This was a thing that would have had to have been fixed no matter what happened. So like that's a little bit unfortunate. Just because it might have been a little bit neater if somehow it could have been, if this one thing from X3, that stupid movie that shouldn't have been made, you know what I mean? Like if that one thing hadn't happened, then we wouldn't have had this horrible future. And I also find myself really wondering how Professor X got his mojo back in the original run of the timeline.
Yeah.
I'm wondering about all of that. At the same time, all of that stuff did happen. It all led us to where we are now. It had to happen. And even though we know at the end of the day that we've got this hopeful future, there's all these untied kind of threads where you really want to know how Weapon X happens this time, or if it does at all, because of the thing with Mystique at the end. And you got to wonder, what is Mystique and Magneto not getting together going to be like? So even though I sort of know what the future is going to be now, it's an open book in the sense of, now I get to see some of these characters actually get to do stuff that didn't before. So I don't know. It's a compromise, but it's one I can live with.
It's tough for me because I do love the first two X-Men films so much, especially 2. And, to think that the Dark Phoenix thing probably doesn't happen now because Xavier saw into Wolverine's mind and probably went, maybe I shouldn't block out all of the evil in Jean Grey's brain. And little things like that. So I'm very much fine with X-Men 3 not happening, and the Cyclops reveal obviously brought me great joy. And
that brought me great joy. And
Yeah,
I remember yelling, "Oh yeah!" when I saw him.
Yeah, like there was a slight like sigh of relief in my cinema. My heart was pounding that whole time because I was thinking, man, are they going to bring him back? Are they just going to forget about it and ignore him? But when he was there, it was like, oh, thank you. And yeah, so like I'm happy that these characters are back and they didn't have to, suffer through The Last Stand. But at the same time, I do love X-Men 1 and 2, and those can't really happen the same way now. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do, like how they introduce these characters and, into the new First Class timeline. But I'm okay with it. But if Apocalypse is not, the film I hope it is, then I guess, I might look back and go, man, I really wish they didn't erase those other films.
Well, Shades, let me ask you if you had the thing I had at the end where it was a little bit bittersweet, where I couldn't help leaving the theater thinking, this is a great place to restart things, and now maybe Cyclops and Storm can, actually get stuff to do and whatever. But I kind of felt like it was such a good send-off. Like, there was a part of me that didn't want to see anymore.
I mean, I was very excited to see more just because of the after credits scene.
Yeah, but you can see what I'm saying, that.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I was very, like I said, I was very satisfied with the film. I was satisfied with my experience, and I was optimistic about the future of the franchise for the first time in forever.
Should be. That's what it's about.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, it was bittersweet, but I was very satisfied, and I didn't really think about, the notion of, oh man, that those films didn't happen now until sort of much later.
Yeah.
But while I was in the cinema, like, leaving the cinema, I was, if anything, just over the moon with how much I enjoyed that. So it felt like such a long time, even though I liked the Wolverine. It felt like it had been such a long time since I'd seen an X-Men film I loved, and I'm someone who doesn't really care for X-Men First Class. I think if McAvoy and Fassbender weren't in that film, it would be nowhere near as good as it is. But so I'm a little, I'm not as pumped that now we have to stick with the continuity from that film, because that wasn't a film I particularly loved. But Days of Future Past was so good that I can forgive it for that.
Well, did this one not help you like First Class a little better though?
It didn't help me like First Class better at all. In fact, it made me not like it more, because I finally saw these characters used properly. Like, I didn't think Mystique and Beast really got their due in First Class, but I really liked them here. So if anything, it made me look at First Class and go, no, I can, now that I've had a really good film that I love with McAvoy and Fassbender, I can now say that I don't like First Class and not feel so guilty.
Wow.
Well,
Okay. All right.
Okay,
I mean,
I guess so.
Of course, I didn't have that, but you know I love that movie, and you and I argued about it for 2 hours, and it was a really fun commentary. But I gotta say though that like I don't feel like, and maybe this is more of a credit to this film than to First Class, but I mean like I don't feel like it was an unnatural sort of progression where like they had to find some way to like squeeze in. Okay, how do we make these guys kind of a little bit more like they're supposed to be? Like I kind of felt like there was a natural progression with Mystique from the kind of sister character of Professor X to where she got in this movie, and I especially liked the whole motif of like Professor X has always tried to control her, and he has to let her go her own way and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, like you wouldn't have had any of that if First Class hadn't done it the way they did it, which would be my argument for that film.
Sure, but I mean, to me, like that, I don't know. That's like I really liked the Wolverine, and that film can't take place without X-Men 3. But it certainly didn't make me like X-Men 3 more.
No, but that's not as good of an example of this, right? Like,
well, I don't know.
You're not saying First Class and 3 are equal, are you?
Oh, far.
Okay.
Oh no.
Okay.
He and I got Shades and I got almost ill trying to get through X3. I don't think he had that with First Class, even though he doesn't like it as well as I do.
No, like I think First Class is a very enjoyable film. I just, it's not the film I wanted to see. I think it's a great study of Magneto's character, and Xavier to an extent. But to me, it's very much, this is the Magneto Xavier film with a bunch of random characters, and I don't think that the villain is that well fleshed out. I have a number of problems with it. I can still sit through it though. X-Men 3 is a little harder.
And I want to suggest something. I think that I think that First Class, now that I've seen this movie, and this is in retrospect, I mean, they didn't know exactly where they were going, probably. I doubt they were forward-thinking enough to know Days of Future Past was going to happen the way it was going to happen when they made First Class. But I think in retrospect, that film is not aptly titled now. Because if you think about what the history is now, okay, so they had those X-Men, and then they had one semester, and then everybody got drafted, and we didn't have X-Men anymore. They weren't really the First Class. They were kind of a proto-class. Like, they were there for a second, and then they weren't anymore. And now that we've reset the timeline, if they want to, and who knows what they're doing with Apocalypse, it's exciting how open the future is, they could do the original 5 X-Men now with no problem.
Well,
like, they could do it.
You can't do Iceman and Angel because they're still meant to be young.
Well, no, I guess you're right. I guess you couldn't really, unless you jumped it up to the 90s. I guess, yeah, and even then they'd be like 8.
Yeah. So I mean, you still can't do the original.
So you still can't really do the original. Yeah, you're right.
It's likely that they'll recast Storm. I think she'll be on the team when they come back.
I'm sure they'll recast her and they'll recast Cyclops
and Jean. They've basically all but come out and officially stated, yes, we're doing this. But like Singer and different people have said a number of times, Cyclops, Storm, and Jean are the characters.
It's important to remember that those are the characters that Wolverine mentions as remember these people's names. I thought it was kind of funny that he didn't call Storm Aurora.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yes.
Storm! Like, remember those names, Jean and Storm and Scott. He's like, I'm pretty sure Professor X came up with Storm, but all right.
I like how he says, remember these names, and he only gives them their first name. Remember to find someone named Scott. I mean, you know.
All right, somewhere in the world, a guy named Scott. All right, let me just write that down.
He's like, okay, so there's 5 mutants named Scott, and these are their powers. I don't know which one I'll get them all. I'll have 5. The original 5 X-Men will all be named Scott.
Well, Logan did say he was not the perfect guy to go back and do this kind of thing. So my guess is that, you know, in the moment he's like not thinking. It's like, oh yeah, I always call her Storm. I forgot. Because you know, Logan. I always call you Logan. So if I had to tell somebody, oh, remember this guy, I'll probably just call you Logan.
Yeah,
I don't think they say Aurora once in. They say it like in the first X-Men film. It's like Aurora Monroe, also called Storm. But apart from that, I don't think her name is ever mentioned again. So
it's not. But Wolverine spent enough time with her that he would know what her first name was, and if it was in the films at all, that makes it canonical with those films.
See, that's the thing.
It's a little strange.
That's the thing with the trilogy as well, is that Wolverine spends like a couple of days with the X-Men in the first film. Then he comes back for a couple more days in the second film, and then we don't know how much time's passed by X-Men 3. So maybe he doesn't.
Well, that's true. Maybe not. But you do get the sense in X-Men 3 that he's like a staple of the school now.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's hilarious. Okay, we're about 40 minutes in. I'm sure there's all kinds of other fun things we'll want to talk about. But would you guys mind if we went ahead and went on to a few criticisms just so that we don't forget to do that? I'd like to ask, and I don't mean to make this all Shades, but I've been dying to ask Shades about this. So let me, if you guys will indulge me for a minute. The one big thing that I really wanted to know that I didn't get to know, and let me start off before I say that by saying that the time travel thing is a conceit, and there are certain things. Some of this is taste. There are certain things that I don't get to know that I don't mind that I don't get to know. In fact, some of it is kind of fun that I don't get to know. For instance, how Wolverine got his metal claws in the future, I don't care. They look entirely different. I don't know if they're adamantium. There's a history there. I don't need to know it. That's kind of cool. That's fine. What I do feel like I kind of need to know is how the heck Professor Xavier got his freaking body back.
Don't they explain that at the end of X3? It's his twin brother or whatever?
But they don't explain it. That, like, I think they hope that everyone kind of read up on that on the internet of like what exactly that scene was meant to be. Like, the whole thing was that Brett Ratner's big idea was that Xavier had a twin who was born with like not a big mind like Xavier, so he was a vegetable. And you know, in X-Men 3, that's the character that he's talking about with Moira, and that's the character that he transfers his consciousness into. But it's
the Ratner-verse version of Cassandra Nova.
Exactly, it's Ratner's Cassandra Nova, and you know, so they don't explain that here. But like in all of the interviews, when people ask Patrick Stewart about this, he just always goes, "Well, if you remember at the end of X-Men 3." So I guess we're meant to know that, but they never come out and say it. Just like they don't come out and say, "Yes, the Cure just wore off." With Magneto, and I mean, he moved the chess piece at the end, so that's easier to presume. But my idea, and I'm not trying to rewrite the film because it's a great film, but it's something that I would have liked to have seen is when Xavier is explaining Mystique killed Trask, and that set us on this path, and they're talking about sending someone back, like Iceman or someone could have said, "So where's Mystique now?" And he could have said, "Well, after her cure, wore off, she was captured and killed or whatever." And that would have easily have said, okay, why wouldn't you want to send Mystique back so she herself could stop herself from killing Trask? And also would have explained the cure thing in one simple sentence.
Good call.
But that being said, like, I didn't really mind. I didn't notice that they didn't explain that stuff until after the film. Sort of upon reflecting on the film afterwards, I was like, huh, they actually didn't explain that, or the Wolverine claws thing from, that he got his adamantium chopped off. So I didn't notice that while watching the film. And I wasn't sitting there going, man, they explain this yet? But but I did definitely think about it afterwards. And I think it's definitely a problem. Um, I've complained about continuity stuff in the other X-Men films, so I feel like it's wrong for me to just give this one a pass. But as well, it doesn't necessarily play directly into the events of the film, so I don't mind.
No, but it was such a kind of. I felt like they were filming it like kind of a mind freak moment in the after credits in Wolverine, where it's like, holy crap, it's Professor X. How is that even possible? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I would have liked that. Like, yes, it is sort of kind of there, but it isn't either. He was shot in silhouette at the end of X3. He has his voice, but that could have been just a silly. He's using his telepathy thing. Like, you don't know that he's really a body that looks like Patrick Stewart. And like, it's not a big deal or anything, but like, I just feel like, especially for a general audience, I don't know, I would have liked that to have been there. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And I'm sure that there are people that don't know that scene exists. Like, we all do because this is our community and this is what this is what we do. But
Yeah,
there are people who don't stay after the credits,
yeah, it barely should count as part of the film. I mean, I really don't like the idea of like you got to stay after all the way to the end of the credits, and then like it's part of the movie. If it matters, it needs to be before the credits.
Yes, and as well, that was like one of the scenes that popularized after credit scenes was X-Men
Yeah,
3, ironically enough. So it was
you're
at a
right.
time when people weren't, programmed, okay, this is a Marvel film, I need to stay.
And to this day, people still don't do that. I mean,
Yeah.
Captain America, I was sitting there. There was a whole bunch of people not moving, but then there was a huge portion leaving. It's like, have you seen none of these films?
And aren't they questioning why everyone is still sitting down?
Yeah, it's like, oh,
Yeah, exactly. I went when I saw it the second time. I went to a theater. I wish somehow they all did this, but it was like a full service theater where you could order food. And the guy that was waiting on me, everybody he talked to before the movie started, he said, "Oh, and just so you know, there's a scene after the credits." And there were still about 40 people that got up and left.
yeah, because God forbid, you can't beat the other people to the parking lot. Get out.
Like, they all actually knew it and they didn't even stay. So yeah, like, if it matters for the film, like if it's setting up another film, whatever, but if it matters for the film that you're watching, it really ought to probably be like before the credits. The other thing that it's talking about after credit scenes. This film made me not like the after credit scene from Wolverine
I don't think
because
it makes any sense at all.
no, and I'm bothered by the notion that Professor X and Magneto find a way to get back together and get along before the big apocalypse happens. Like, that seems like the thing that would have brought them together.
Hmm.
Like you don't need to explain it. If you have them in this future where almost all the mutants are killed and there's even not very many humans left, and Magneto and Professor X are working together, I don't think you have to explain that at all. Like, I just, it makes sense that they're working together. If they're together before all that, that begs some kind of explanation.
And I was talking to you about this the other night, but I had this issue watching the film where, like, there's a movie that takes place between First Class and Days of Future Past and in between X3 and this that we didn't get to see that I think we need to, that addresses all this. Like, Beast has this, makes this cure in this film, then that kind of goes against his character arc in First Class. So what's the genesis of that? And with, like you said, with Magneto and Professor X getting together, that has to be explained because after X3, there's no way those two guys would see eye to eye again. And like the Wolverine thing and all that, like there's a whole bunch of small plot points that you need to explain somewhere. Especially, like, even if you don't look into these films, if you just watch them from beginning to end, even with end credits, there's still not enough to explain all that.
I don't really think Bryan Singer cared too much, though, because he knew the whole point of this movie was to just pave over everything.
But he's so thoughtful with so much stuff.
Hmm.
Like, I wouldn't be complaining about any of this if it wasn't as good of a film as it is, I think. You know what I mean? Like, it gets so close. So like these are the only things that bug me really at all. That and a little bit of the time travel, but I guess we could talk about that in a second. Sometimes it's, as I said earlier, sometimes it's clever though. Like there are things about future Wolverine, for instance, that we never get to know that I'm kind of okay knowing because there were all those years in between. There were like 10 years in between where you wouldn't know stuff. So like he goes to find Quicksilver because he was friends with him in the future and he died. But we didn't get to see any of that relationship. But that's okay because that would happen. He says, I thought this was interesting. He says to Beast, "You and I will become good friends." Well, they hated each other in X3, but there were 10 years we didn't see.
I wouldn't say they hated each other.
They didn't. They got close. They didn't like each other at all.
Well, when they first met, but after the end of the film, they were friends.
Yeah, he just says, "Way to go, Furball," and they work together and all that.
Well, it's not like I go back and watch that movie all the time. I kind of forgot about that part.
And also, who knows how much time is in between X-Men 3 and the beginning of this film?
Well, we do know about 10, and that's precisely
about 10 years. About 10 years.
Like, well, 10 years between. Yeah, I mean, like, because it's they give us a date. It's like 2023.
Oh, okay.
So it would have been. Yeah, I mean, it's about 10 years from now to then. So yeah,
that's plenty of time to become good buddies.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I don't mind that one. Like that's kind of fun. I like that. And while I'm randomly mentioning weird past things, I want to throw this out. Wolverine has this line. Tell me if this bothered anybody else. Wolverine has this line when he first wakes up in an otherwise hilarious scene when he wakes up in the past, and he says that he slept with that girl many times. How would he know that?
Because he remembers that time. I don't know.
But why would he remember that time?
Because he lost his memories.
Can remember things. That's the thing about the Wolverine. It's like, how does he remember the Japan thing?
Yeah, I don't know. He shouldn't remember that.
His mind is just remembering things now. It's weird.
And he also talks about all the wars that he's been in. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right. But then there's other places where he's like, there's a lot of stuff I don't remember. You know what I mean? Like, they're inconsistent about it.
Memory is not his mutant superpower.
Clearly not. One thing people have been complaining about is that his healing factor didn't stop him from losing all of his memories with Weapon X, but his healing factor is the reason that he can survive the time travel thing. Does that bother anybody else?
Yeah, can we talk about that?
Yeah,
because that really bugged me in the theater both times watching it. So essentially what we're saying is that Wolverine's consciousness is a physical thing and he can heal it. And that doesn't make any sense, especially considering the way Kitty talks about sending him back, is that she's sending parts of his mind, not his brain, not his body, but his mind, and she can't lose that or Wolverine becomes a vegetable. So are they basically saying that Wolverine's mind can heal? So wouldn't that also mean that his personality can heal? Like, that whole concept means that Wolverine his healing factor is so good, he can heal the metaphysical.
Well, here's the thing with like Wolverine's power as well, is that he can heal back his hair, but he can get a haircut. Like, there's different parts of his healing ability that just don't make
and yet it still looks like
sense.
That.
Well, I mean, like, that's a physical thing. Like, we're talking about an out-of-body, completely non-physical matter object that Wolverine can still heal.
Yeah, I guess, when you put it like that, it really makes no sense at all. But it was still something.
Yeah, like, what makes Wolverine's consciousness any better than anyone else's consciousness, you know?
I think there's like this running gag in a lot of these films of like it depends on who's writing the film how Wolverine's power works. Like, if this was like the X-Men 1 Wolverine, you would say that there's no way he could survive that because Rogue nearly killed him a couple of times. And here it's like he's gone through like not being able to be evaporated by the Phoenix and all that stuff. So it's just they play hard and fast with his power, and I guess the filmmakers probably aren't expecting us to ask these sorts of questions.
Yeah, that's precisely what it is. I don't know. I just wish that the real reason had been more of, well, like Professor X can't do. Like, if they came up with some other reason that Professor X couldn't do it, and it's like, well, the only other person that was even in that time period that we could deal with is Wolverine. Like I don't even know if we had to go in a healing factor direction.
I was wondering why they were going to explain why Wolverine was the one, apart from he's the main character. So
Yeah.
I actually, when they came up with the healing thing, I went, "Oh, okay, that's kind of clever." But then when you put it like that, I guess it's not very well thought out. But once again, it didn't bother me, and I hadn't thought about it until now.
It didn't bother me until later, and I read comments and people were complaining about it. And I was like, oh yeah, that is kind of strange. Yeah, I mean, like the whole conceit is really flimsy once you start messing with it, and time travel is usually like this anyway. But I mean, like again, I'm glad we got rules, but like what the rules are really arbitrary. It's like, okay, so if Kitty Pryde sends you back in time, then both time periods are happening simultaneously until she lets go. Is essentially what is going on. That's hilarious. I don't know how that works, but like that, like until she lets go, nothing affects the future, and also time is progressing at exactly the same rate. Like, I mean, like time progresses at the same rate, but you know what I mean. Like, you know, she actually is making time effectively happen at exactly the same time. The future and the past, and I think it's hilarious that power is that strong and amazing. Also, where did she get it? Shades, would
Yes.
you this to me? Where did that come from?
Oh, don't ask me. I mean, like that was when I was waiting for them to actually. I'll start with this. Facebook, the X-Men Facebook a while back posted like when they were launching the marketing for the film, posted an image of Kitty and said her time traveling powers will help save the world. And I went, what? What time traveling powers? And they didn't explain why she had them apart from she can phase through things, so she can phase someone's consciousness back in time. It's very loosely connected. um they didn't explain why she had it apart from it was just one of her powers. She just never used it, I guess. So
Uh, I have a
I don't know.
question. I have a question, Shades.
Hmm.
Kitty is partly used in this role because it was actually her that went back in time in the comic.
Yeah.
Who did this to her? Who traveled her mind back into her previous mind back in time?
Well,
Who
they
did?
had a machine. It wasn't like a mutant power that sent them back, that sent her back.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. It's like
And I can't.
it's been different things in different continuities. Like in the animated series, like there was a sort of big time portal thing that Bishop just jumped through and he physically went back. I was kind of glad that they did the consciousness sent back because I just thought that was a cool concept from the comic that they kept, and I didn't expect this to be much like the comic at all. And I mean, not that I'd blame them if it wasn't, but once again, I'm kind of one of those people that if you're going to use a title from the comics, your film should somewhat resent should represent the comic in some way. But yeah, so the fact that it's Kitty's power, it doesn't make sense in that she didn't have that in X-Men 3. Um, but I guess you could make the argument, well, we just didn't see her use that.
But what's strange about it is that it comes out of nowhere, even in the future, where it's like, well, if they knew she had that, why didn't they try this years ago? And, like, you get the sense that they just found out about it too, because when Professor X comes to see them, they're like, okay, we got this whole method for time travel, like we just developed it or something.
Yeah,
I
all they
guess
needed
you
to do was drop a line about secondary mutations or something, because that's a thing in the comics too. Like she could have developed a
yeah.
secondary mutation later on in the future.
That's true.
I would have just made one of those other random future X-Men like a really good scientist and build a machine.
You could have had
Could work.
Forge in this film, I think.
Yeah.
He's the one from the animated series that they used to explain all that and send Bishop back. Um, I appreciated the fact that they tried to give Kitty an important role in the film. Um, Kitty's one of my all-time favorite characters, and obviously is pretty much the main character of the comic. And I appreciated the fact that they gave her an important role. So I can't complain too much about that, just from a personal taste standpoint. But the fact that it was just kind of a power that she randomly had, I do agree they could have had a great scientist build it. And when they had Warpath and Sunspot and Blink and Bishop, they were kind of just like, if you don't read the comics, you probably don't know any of them except Bishop. And
Oh,
um,
and Colossus.
oh, sorry, I just meant of the brand new characters.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
But yeah, so you had Kitty and Colossus and Iceman, who I just love to death in this film.
I kind of do like that it's something that the mutants have that the humans don't, that allows them to save the future. Because, like, a human could have done that just as easily as any of the mutants. Like, the thing that makes them special is also what helps them save the world. That's what I kind of liked, that it was a mutation.
Yeah,
kind of
I'm
thing.
with you, but it would have been cool if it was like a machine that augmented a power or something. Because the thing is, going through the whole movie, I wasn't sure it wasn't that. I mean, she's got like that purple light coming out of her hands, and they're laying on some kind of special table. I kept thinking it was a machine, but I wasn't sure. I guess what I'm complaining about is just that we're not told how it works.
Right, exactly.
So I just would have liked to have known how it worked. And also, if it was like a power augmented thing, that would have, in a really interesting way, kind of called back a little bit to Magneto's whole plan from X-Men 1 with the power augmenting thing that that gives everybody superpowers. That could have been really neat if they'd done something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a
if
cool
they
idea.
captured like those mutant suppressing collars and like reversed it or something.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, that would have been a cool direction to go in.
See, I mean, I'm not complaining about how they did it. What I'm complaining about is I don't know how they did it. That's all I'm saying.
I know we're sort of talking about some of our negatives in the film, but I do want to bring up real quick before I forget the whole opening monologue from Xavier, where he's talking about the future, and they show everyone with the collars from Genosha and the M's over their eyes, like Bishop has, which is straight out of it's straight out of the Psi Complex. I just, as a fan, that made me go, oh man, this is so cool. And just to follow it up with a revamped version of the X-Men 2 score, I got goosebumps in the cinema. That was excellent.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, and that's the next thing I was going to say after you mentioned the opening is, Shades, you and I have talked about this at length. You know how much I love John Ottman's score.
Yeah, same, yeah.
And how that is probably one of, if not my favorite scores of all of superhero movies. And I mean, like, it's at least in my top 3. It's up there with the original Superman, and it's up there with '89. And so, like, I did not expect that to come back. And I didn't just have goosebumps. I don't mind saying I had tears down my face in the opening credits, because I like X2 is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I was transported back 11 years, and it was a really big deal.
How did they do
the score is fantastic. Well, there was this weird time travel thing. I'm not sure if it was a machine or like a mutant power Alex. It might have been both. I'm not sure, but somehow or rather, I got transported back, and I remember sleeping with that woman several times. And,
See, my biggest discrepancy with this movie is such a nitpick, but I was kind of really excited at the end of First Class. They finally gave us the Jack Kirby Magneto costume on screen,
Yes.
and they set it up like, oh, he's gonna look like a red and purple awesome guy moving stuff around with metal, and it's gonna be awesome. And then it never happened. I mean, I did like the costume in this movie that Fassbender had on, but I was a little disappointed that we didn't get the.
You're not alone in that, because I love that costume to death at the end of First Class, and to not see it kind of broke my heart a little bit.
I looked over at my wife and I said, "Where are the horns?"
Yeah,
Where are the horns,
man?
They made a big deal out of, let's go find his helmet, and then the horns aren't that. You can't tell me that Singer, because Singer co-wrote that movie. You can't, like, First Class, you can't tell me that he's not putting this movie together going, somebody's going to complain about the horns.
I mean, what's funny, I love the helmet that he has on at the end of First Class, but his costume to me looks very, very baggy, and just, it didn't suit Fassbender, the costume itself. It did look like, to me, like a bad cosplay, but I really liked his costume in this film, and I liked how he had to steal his helmet. Apparently, they were originally going to have him like make the helmet out of metal during the film, and then they came up with the idea of, you know what? Why don't we have him steal the helmet? We can incorporate the metal, the metal balls that he uses in X-Men 2 again, and I really liked that. I liked him stealing his helmet. Just Magneto just generally being a bad A, I thought was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did anybody else wonder, this is the last complaint I'm going to throw out, did anybody, and people are probably going to be like, Captain Logan actually did not like this film. No, I love this movie. It's just, there's stuff, I haven't gotten to talk about this with anybody that knows comics, so I wanted to ask you guys about this stuff. The other thing, or this franchise as well as I do, I really wondered, about how in the world Mystique's in the original timeline survived Trask's experiments.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's a good point.
Really wondered about that because like all these other people get killed in his experiments, and then he's talking about spinal fluid and all kinds of stuff. You have to assume that all happened in the first timeline, and like he got her, and she was what they used to make those Sentinels in the future, and then somehow or rather she had to have gotten away. I really wanted to know how that happened. Also, I'm not sure how her power translates to Sentinels that can combat any mutant power.
Yeah, like one of the Sentinels had Emma Frost's crystallization and stuff like that. So they weren't just taking on like there was the Sentinel that was able to turn into like have Colossus's armor, but then there were Sentinels that had powers from previously existing characters. They didn't really go into depth about that. Apart from, I guess you could say, Mystique has in her DNA has the ability to adapt and to change into things, and the humans over all the years since they took her spinal fluid in the 70s managed to adapt and develop it into what they wanted it to be, and it took them that long to make the Sentinels they truly wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that makes some kind of sense. But anyway, well, we've been at this about an hour. I want to make sure that we hit any other topics you guys wanted to that we didn't bring up as I've been moderating this thing. So anybody right now, feel free. Throw out anything, any aspect we didn't talk about that you'd like to talk about. There's lots of stuff in this movie.
President Nixon was great. I really liked
Yes.
the guy. I really did like the guy who played Nixon because it wasn't like the Watchmen guy where I felt like he was doing like an over-the-top Nixon impression.
Exactly.
He looked like Nixon and had the mannerisms down, but it wasn't like over the top. And I liked the role that Nixon had in the film too. He was cool.
I agree. Isn't it funny how Nixon has kind of come the geeky president? He's been in he's been in Doctor Who and Watchmen and this X-Men film, and I believe something else that I'm forgetting.
Well, he's a very
and of
good
course,
slimy guy, so he's a good,
yeah, that's great. That actually is a good explanation.
He's the president in Futurama.
Yeah, Futurama is what I'm thinking.
Oh, I love
I was really
Futurama.
sad that we didn't see future Nixon and be like, Agnew, get me. Like,
Nixon's back, baby.
When they first started
Nixon Sentinel.
When they first started doing the scene in the Oval Office, I actually found myself looking around like, oh, is there like an Agnew? Is there like a Kissinger guy here? Ben Stein was in his White House, so I was looking for him.
Was there when during Chris Claremont's cameo there was a guy that kind of looked like Kissinger? I wasn't sure if that was supposed to be him or not.
I'm not sure, but were you like me when you watch Nixon come out of the safe room to face Magneto? I remember thinking, oh, no way Nixon would do that.
No way.
Yeah, I had the same thing.
And then it was Mystique. It's like, oh, okay. Movie saved.
Nixon was looking at him going, look how brave I am right now.
Nixon would have crapped his pants and been in the corner sucking his thumb at that point.
Exactly. There are some presidents who might have done that, but no way would Nixon do it. He would be on the bottom of that list of guys who would do that.
Shades, there's a little bit of McKellen in your Nixon.
Well, you see, they both talk as if they're holding a singing note. They've got that kind of treble in their voice.
Yeah, that's true.
See, we never realized it, but Nixon was that great part that McKellen never played.
Yes. McKellen could have played a mean Nixon back in the day.
He could have. Totally could have. That would have been great.
So, wouldn't it be neat if Nixon was in the same continuity with Doctor Who Nixon? And
he's in all these things that involve time travel. What's up with that?
Yeah. That's true. It's all time travel stuff.
Futurama, Doctor Who.
Time travel.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the Watchmen does have time travel in it. Yeah. Wow, that's great.
Yeah, all this crazy crap I have to deal with.
What else haven't we talked about?
Blink has the coolest power.
Oh yeah, she was really cool.
Yeah, Blink was awesome.
I feel bad when I did my first review. I accidentally called her Psylocke because I totally forgot who she was because I've never seen Blink in anything. And I was like, Psylocke. People were like, that was a Psylocke. What are you talking about? I was like, oh yeah, you're right. It wasn't. They both have a power that's kind of pinkish. Oops.
I agree. You almost did it to me. Blink came off really good, actually. Out of the newer characters for this film, with the little role she had, she came off really, really kind of awesome. I could definitely see why she has the fan base that she has.
Yeah, when they announced Blink, I went, okay, like she's somewhat popular, but there were new characters I'd bring in before her, and when we're crossing over to casts, I don't know if I'd bring in many other characters, but they used her ability in a really great way, and like at the end when they're like they seem hopeless against the Sentinels, and like she's just creating portals and portals, I was like, oh man, like she's doing her best, but she's not gonna. It was just I really liked her role in this film. She didn't have
Yeah,
a lot of
I like.
dialogue, and neither did any of the other newer characters, but I really liked her.
They were barely characters, but I don't know how else you would do it. And I mean, like, there are places where I find myself going, "Oh man, I wish I knew that person more because I'd probably like that person." Like, it's sad what they're having to
Yeah,
deal with now, you know.
I
I
thought it was
liked
good having
Warpath
these
too. He's really.
sort of. Sorry, Dan.
I was just gonna say I like Warpath too. He's one of my favorites from the comics. It was cool to see him, and hopefully they use him in X Force because I think that kid at the beginning is supposed to be Cable.
Oh, cool.
Oh, really? Okay. I was
That's
trying to
what
figure
people
out
are
who that kid
saying
was meant to
online,
be.
but I wanna watch it again. Supposedly there's something going on with his eye. I don't know.
Well, I can see some people thinking that because he sees a Sentinel about to, you know, blast him and his eye lights up. But
Yeah,
I thought that was just the reflection of the blast. Uh,
Yeah.
so that's interesting.
but
I mean,
anyway,
how
sorry.
would he
Go ahead.
exist? Because Scott and Jean never had a kid.
Time travel. I don't know.
Well, and Alex Summers is supposed to be Cyclops' younger brother, so
Yeah, that's true.
I have a theory about that because I think that they might play with this. By the way, I think it's hilarious that the other Summers also got shafted in this movie.
I was fine with that.
I know you probably were, but it's still kind of funny. I wondered if they didn't do it on purpose. But I think maybe he's Cyclops' dad in this.
See, that was the original theory in First Class, but I mean, he's not that much older than Scott then.
Are you sure? Because like this is 73,
Yeah. He was like
and
he's you know in his 30s at the eldest, and Scott is going to be in the next one, and how old would he be there? He'd be like less than 10.
yeah, that's true. But when is the next one gonna be like
Well,
gonna be set in?
at the moment they're
Do we know?
talking about the 80s,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm kind of this is something this sort of gets into like talking about apocalypse territory, but like I do want to say this. I think they really need to slow down with the amount of years that they're skipping because um you know, I just don't think that McAvoy especially and Fassbender look like they've aged 10 years since First Class. So to continue skipping decades, I mean, they're never going to look like Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen at this rate.
No, eventually we're gonna have to recast them older, which will be bizarre.
Yeah, I really don't want them to recast them. They're fantastic.
No, I don't either. But I'm just saying, like that's what we would have to do. That's gonna get weird. No, the only way the Scott Summers thing works is if Alex Summers was his father, would be like if he was born already and we just didn't know that he had kids.
Cyclops is one of the characters that shows up in Cerebro in First Class as well as like a teenager.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Okay, fine. So these timelines do not even remotely match up then.
Yeah.
And there's no way to reconcile it. So I'm going to stop trying.
That's
Because
the way you need to do it.
it can't be done, Manos. It can't be done.
You just
What are
need
you going to do?
you just need to relax and go. It's just a movie and just
It's
enjoy.
just a movie. It's true. No, and I am doing that, but that doesn't mean I can't ask questions, Manos.
I agree, yeah, but you know, sometimes you just gotta let go. Hey, they're old, whatever.
Well, and then the thing is, if they're good and they're good now, it's hard to really care that much.
Well, you know,
Uh,
Nostalgia Critic had an interesting video about nitpicking, and he came to the conclusion if you're into a film, you don't care so much about, the nitpick questions. If you are not into the film, if the film doesn't have you, then you start to really see those nitpicks and see them really kind of become more and more glaring.
I don't know. I find if I really like a movie, I'm giving it so much more due that I find that I look at a lot more of, like I'm looking at it a lot deeper. So like I find that seem like I'm complaining a lot more with a movie that I actually really loved. So like I said earlier, like with this movie, some of the stuff I probably wouldn't even have thought of if I didn't like it, because my mind would be in other places. Fundamental. All right, you guys don't know how to tell stories. Yeah, but like I find that when I really love something, I tend to look at it closer.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I do that too.
So yeah. But anyway, other stuff that we need to not neglect talking about.
Can Wolverine drown? I guess not.
No, I
His
guess
lungs can heal.
they just keep regenerating. Well, if he can heal his consciousness, then yeah,
Then he can like evaporate the water in his lungs.
yeah, of course. Of course he can. Can we talk about the Mystique thing at the end, please?
Yeah, please.
Because so really great mind freak moment, but I don't understand it, and I'm looking forward to hopefully understanding it. Like what is Mystique doing? Is she going to become Stryker and create Weapon X? If so, why? Or is she going to take Wolverine and go someplace else with him? Why would she doesn't know enough about Wolverine? Why would she go there as Stryker? Like, how would she know that there was a thing between Stryker and Wolverine? I don't understand any of that.
And where's Stryker while Mystique is impersonating him?
Precisely.
I have a theory about where they might be going. Wolverine and Mystique are two characters that do a lot of stuff in Madripoor, so maybe that's where the next Wolverine movie's set, and Mystique is in it.
I hope so.
Ooh, that would
Madripoor is one of those things I've definitely wanted to see.
Yeah, me too.
Pretty sure that the next movie, I mean, this should go without saying, but can we be pretty sure that the next Wolverine movie will actually be set in this continuity?
Poor
I'm
Wolverine.
not sure.
His movies.
They're
his
talking
solid
about
movies make no sense anymore.
right now. Mangold and Jackman are talking about doing an Old Man Logan adaptation. So if they set it far enough in the future, yeah, it could be.
If they set it far enough in the future, it might not matter if it is or not.
Yeah,
right? Like it just be kind of its own thing, and yeah, that's cool. But that means that we could be theoretically doing like this kind, like the far future and the past at the same time. Wow.
I really want them to do at least one more film. One more film is all I ask for with the older cast, because to me it feels like, okay, you brought back Cyclops, you brought back Jean, like you had Kelsey Grammer cameo, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah, it was.
You brought these characters back. Shouldn't you do something else with them? I got such nostalgia looking at all these characters together again. I was like, you've got to do at least one more film, just one more. And I do feel like that cast deserves to get Apocalypse more than the younger cast do. Because Apocalypse is, their big, he's the X-Men's Thanos, he's the X-Men's Darkseid. To me, the older cast, after all they've gone through in their films and stuff like that, they're the ones that deserve to get the big villain. But it doesn't look like that's going to be happening, so that's a shame.
Yeah, I'm with you.
We'll see.
I mean, that's what you're thinking.
We'll see, because he's like a mortal villain who's been around thousands of years. He could hit them at any point.
That's true.
Any point in the 70s or to the present.
And I could see them doing something that involves both timelines, but do they want to do that so quickly again?
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, what you're talking about would make a lot more sense, because since we've seen the future, it's kind of ironic that the very next thing we're going to do is Apocalypse. So it's not like any of us are going to be sitting there going, well, there's thinking that there's any chance whatsoever that Apocalypse is going to actually create an apocalypse. They're going to win. I mean, you're usually going to assume your hero's going to win anyway, but I'm just saying, we've seen the future. We know they make it okay. We know what characters make it alive, most of them. Yeah. And so, or at least a lot of them. So like, I don't know. That's kind of interesting that that's kind of the next place they would take it. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I wish we could see it. Also, doing another movie that's set, they won't do this, but doing another movie that's set that far in the future we finally would have something that really is in the not too distant future. And we said that, but it's never happened.
Yeah, they had like all those that technology that Wolverine's alarm clock was a hologram,
Yeah.
and Cyclops had future goggles.
And we have an actual date, so we know it's in our future anyway.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I think it's funny that like X3 and and I guess the others too before that, but X3 specifically says not too distant future, and then once we went to First Class, now we kind of dated it all. Like we know that X-Men has to take place probably in the 90s.
Well, also the first X-Men film features a model of New York City, and the Trade Center towers are in that model. So
Well, that's true.
To me, that dated that film.
Well, it did, but they didn't know it at the time.
Yeah, it's not much that can be said about that. I mean, like, not much that can be done in terms of.
Yeah. Well, that was just an unfortunate circumstance.
Yes.
Sure.
They rebuilt them. Problem solved.
Magneto did it.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Magneto rebuilds everything.
Time travel.
Kitty sent someone back to stop 9/11. Oh.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just.
Well, that's interesting. Did it happen in the X-Men world? It could not have, possibly.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, I guess that would be on my list of things I would probably warn people about while I was hanging out in the past.
Well, because all of history is really different from the Cuban Missile Crisis going forward.
Yeah, I wonder what 80s aspect of history they're going to latch onto in the next film, if they're going to do in the 80s. Like, it'll be very interesting to see, like, they'll probably do something Cold War, I would imagine, like,
Omega Red.
That would be cool.
Oh, man, that's great. Yeah, do that. That'd be cool. But they're not going to because they have Apocalypse.
He's the one that tears down the wall. That would be awesome.
Well, and the thing that was exciting to me about the after credits scene was by showing the pyramids, we're still doing the alternate history thing. Like, we're still doing we're going to do a mutant explanation for things that actually happened that more or less turn out the same way.
Yeah, and it's all, like, historically ambiguous sort of conspiracy theory things, so they have a lot of leeway to work with. Like, we still don't know how the pyramids were built in the amount of time they built them in.
Watch in 5 years, we'll have like before that movie comes out, we'll have like definite evidence for how it happened.
Oh, they did figure that out recently.
Oh, they did.
Like
okay.
Wet sand basically makes things super slippery.
Okay, well,
that's the gist.
There we go.
Oh, and don't.
Apocalypse didn't build them. Oh,
yeah.
Well, that was somewhat anticlimactic, Alex.
I'm going to pretend a crazy mutant did it because that's what's exciting.
Well, given Stargate and everything else, I wanted it to be something a little bit more elaborate than wet sand.
Well, yeah,
a young blue mutant with 4 men on horses.
And don't, and do not forget millions and millions of slaves.
Yeah, Alex, the History Channel told me, on their Ancient Aliens show, that aliens did it. So
clearly, that guy with the crazy hair is right.
Dan, I've told everyone I know that you are a history expert, and you're telling me that everything you know is from the History Channel?
Oh, yeah, exactly. That guy even went to my school, and I talked to him. It was a good time.
Wow.
Really?
No,
wow.
I'm just kidding. I don't believe anything that guy says, but he did go to my school.
Yeah, Manos, you gotta understand that when Dan and I start talking, about 30% of everything we say is complete nonsense.
That's true. Me too. But it's logical you could run into him. I mean, that's not too far fetched.
Yeah, they got that guy to lecture at my school. I'm kind of scared.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Yeah. See.
I'm kind of scared about my educational future, but that's beside the point.
So what's it like to meet a meme in real life?
And then he's like, Neil Hydra.
I will divulge the rest of the experience of what happened with that guy on campus after the podcast is over, because I don't think I should say it on recording.
Oh,
Hey Dan, did you ask him if him and Grumpy Cat are friends?
I just feel like that would be a great video if somebody made like a spoof like History Channel documentary on Apocalypse building the pyramids.
Oh, you can
That
bet
should
that'll
totally
be in the
happen.
viral marketing for the next movie.
It should be. That'd be fantastic.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, I kind of trust them now. Like I said with the viral thing with JFK, I was like, oh, we got to go there again. Now, whatever viral thing they're doing, I'm like, nah, that's gonna be great.
One of the other things of the viral marketing that they did for this film was the 25 Moments website,
Yeah.
which I thought was spectacular.
I didn't know about that. Explain.
Oh, okay. So basically, they had a website that had 25 images from the 60s till the beginning of the future stuff in Days of Future Past. So they had very important, significant moments in the history of man and how mutants affected them, and they also had things like you know, Henry McCoy was dragged from his home and beaten and killed and stuff like that. So it's really interesting if you haven't seen it. Like they say that the Chernobyl thing like caused Colossus to be Colossus as a baby.
Wow.
Really interesting stuff.
It would have been neat if there was more. I will say this: I wish we had somehow, and I don't know how you would have worked it in. It would have been neat to have somehow known a little bit more about the future and stuff and how it happened.
Yeah, I guess they did they tried to sort of establish it in a very quick scene with Xavier's monologue. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess if you like, I didn't feel like that was necessary just because I felt like I knew so much about it going in. But there's someone who wouldn't know that and is isn't necessarily a fan. I guess that'd be like, wow, how did the world get this screwed up?
Yeah, like Steve was saying earlier, there's a movie there,
Yeah,
and it's okay that it wasn't made. And obviously, once again, this is a conceit, and it's a good one. And it's thoughtful, and like I said, I think that the way that they're rebooting is handled far better than other things that have tried this. But I don't know. I mean that's a credit to it. That I liked it. I wanted to know more about it. I thought that the set that they designed for where they were was gorgeous.
yeah.
All right, well, we are almost an hour and a half in, so we're going to go ahead and end off here unless there's any other aspect of this we didn't delve into that people wanted to. We haven't heard a ton from Steven and a ton from Alex, so if you guys have anything else we didn't talk about.
You gonna clean that stuff up?
I did love that line. That was awesome.
Hey, I will say, I think we kind of touched on this a little bit, but isn't it kind of refreshing that this wasn't another Wolverine movie with the X-Men? He has a huge, important role, and we do follow him in the film, but it mainly does feel like the most ensemble X-Men film we've seen in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I really like that aspect of it. Oh, one other discrepancy I thought of. I sorely miss Nightcrawler in this movie. He's my favorite X-Men character. Everyone else was in it. Where was Nightcrawler? I don't know. I wish he was in the movie.
I agree, or at least a mention.
Yeah.
He would have been a really cool character to have in the future, teleporting and stuff. That could have been a really cool. I guess you had Blake doing the portals, but having a teleporter would have been a nice added bonus.
Well, nothing against Blink, but they could have done him instead of her.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Was
that's
that just
true.
bring that actor back thing or something? Because that would have been a coup. Nobody would have expected to see him again.
Apparently, Alan Cumming just hated the makeup for X2, so I guess he didn't want to return.
I didn't know that. Okay, well they probably would have done it if it hadn't been for that.
There's
Oh,
also
I mean,
some theories on the internet that say the reason Mystique was running away from Magneto and doing her own thing is because she was pregnant with Azazel's baby, and that's why she was so moody throughout the movie, and she was so upset about him dying.
Huh.
She wasn't showing.
Well,
She's a
she's a
shapeshifter.
shapeshifter.
I walked right into that.
Yeah, Beyonce wasn't showing up until the 8th month. So you know what? It's possible the shapeshifter wasn't either.
She's a shapeshifter too, eh? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay, all right. Well, now that we know
That's the
Beyonce's power, I
26th
wonder
month.
if JFK is. Why can't we have JFK's power?
By the way, here's a dorky question. How cool would a Blink versus Nightcrawler fight be?
That would be really cool, Manos.
I'd like to see that.
Manos, that's not only a dorky question, that's gotta be the dorkiest thing you've ever said.
No,
Like,
no.
I love that. No, but Manos, you never degenerate into the let's pit this person up against this person thing. Like, I've never heard you go, what would a fight between these two people be like?
That's true. I don't because I'm old, so I get tired of it. I've done that for 20 years, so
In Manos' defense, I think that's a valid question to ask when we're talking about a film. Like, I think that'd be a very interesting fight scene to see.
I'm just making fun of Manos. I completely agree. That does sound like fun.
Um,
But I don't. If I'm just saying that if Blink, like if Nightcrawler had been there, I don't think Blink would have been.
yeah.
yeah, of course.
And if we're gonna play, play easy with time and how people age in this, if Cyclops is gonna be, Havoc's kid and is supposedly 10 in the 80s and he's old, Nightcrawler can also be in the new cast for all I care. I just want to see that character again.
Well, sure, and him being like a blue demon looking character, he could age differently. I mean, like once you put people in makeup, you can do about anything you want to.
Just about everybody in this
exactly.
series ages slowly. It's like one of the best interpretations of comic books I've ever seen in film. When you think
Yes,
of it
that's
that
true.
way.
If you look at it like that, no, I mean, Manos, when you say that, that means that like Magneto is probably 115.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, he was in World War II, so yeah, it's possible.
It's funny
Yeah.
how they've ported over the continuity problems too from the comics with X-Men.
That is true.
They've adapted the continuity errors perfectly.
Yes.
I just felt like I was missing Nightcrawler as the guy that's all about hope on the X-Men in a movie about hope that's also about the X-Men. I don't know.
Oh, I completely agree with you, Dan. Yeah, no, I had the same thing. I guess it's just I was so used to what this cast was that I had kind of gotten over where's Nightcrawler, but like now that you bring it up again, I'm like, oh, yeah, I would have liked to have seen that. Yeah.
It is very disappointing as well when he is one of the most memorable characters from all of the series and he's only in one film. I mean, he's memorable generally because of the scene in the White House because it's such a spectacular opening.
Oh, my favorite thing ever.
It is amazing, but he is one of those characters that is instantly recognizable for an X-Men character now. Like the general public know of Nightcrawler. Who care enough about the X-Men films? They know Nightcrawler, and he's only been in one film. And the fact that Azazel was in First Class, like, it really made you. When he and Mystique wound up on the same team at the end, it was like, okay, next film we're gonna get Nightcrawler conceived most likely. But it is a shame that he hasn't been brought back when he is such an instantly memorable character.
Let me ask you this, because there was that scene where she's in the Mystique. She's in the French hospital, being treated under assumed name, I assume, and I believe the nurse asks her if she has family, and she hesitates before she says like no or something like that. You can kind of explain that as she's thinking of her extended family of the Xavier and the X-Men. But I mean, it's also possible she's had the baby and maybe has given it away at some point.
To the
That's
surface.
True. Also, like in X-Men 2, there's that scene where where Mystique and Nightcrawler share a moment. There's a deleted scene in X-Men 2 as well, where when Mystique is going through Stryker's computer, she finds files on like Nightcrawler being tested on, and she has this reaction of, "Oh no, not my son." So,
I'm sorry, was that a Nixon impression or a McKellen impression? I can never tell.
that was very sad, distraught ShadesAtKnight.
Oh.
All right,
Now
Shades.
you know.
All right.
Oh.
Okay,
Oh.
okay, Shades. I think we've now established that's just your impression of anybody.
Oh, is that what they say?
Yeah. Okay. Let's hear your Mickey Mouse. Oh, that's what they're saying.
Hello there, Minnie. Get me Agnew.
Okay.
We should probably go ahead and end this off.
Can I just say one thing real quick?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
I apologize I wasn't here for the beginning.
No, that's right.
I because it's I'm in a different country obviously, and I worked out the time in Kansas when we were going to record it to be an hour later than what it actually was. So when I came online and suddenly I had a message from you, I was like, oh no, did I really mess it up? So I apologize I wasn't here for the beginning, everybody.
Oh, that's okay. You managed to jump in just 10 minutes after we started,
Oh,
so
okay.
you didn't miss much of anything. Yeah, no, that's great. I'm glad we were able to get you in because we got we waited for you for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then I thought we better start, and I hate that. So I'm so glad you were here because you of course you added a lot to the conversation, and every time I see something X-Men, I'm like, I want to talk to Shades right now. And find out what he thinks because I know we probably are on complete polar opposite sides of everything. Really excited that you liked this movie as much as I did.
I think it's kind of cool. I mean, since we've done all the X-Men commentaries except for Wolverine,
Which we're gonna do really soon.
yes, we had planned to do that before First Class, but time, got away from us. But it's interesting because I think we see very similar on the films in a lot of ways. I guess I had a little bit of a rant about First Class today. I'm sorry, X-Men First Class. I do like you. I just hate this idea that you're the best. But
Well, can I say that is a place you and I match up? X2 is still my favorite.
yes, yeah, X2 is very much still my favorite.
No, it could change. I mean, I love this film, but it's still and one of the reasons I'm going to say that I can't put it above X2 is because one of the things I love about it is how much it's respecting X2. There's a relationship between those two movies.
Yes.
And you just couldn't have that without X2. Like I love all the we talked about how Wolverine's not the whole movie. Yeah, but I do like the Stryker stuff. I do like that he's flashing back to that, and that's a thing for him, and that's the thing that makes him almost lose the connection. Yeah, we got Singer doing this. You can tell the reason Singer came back was because he liked making X2. I mean, that's what I saw in this movie.
Yeah. Singer very much cares about the X-Men. I think he, if he could, no pun intended, go back in time, I don't think he would do what he did and have his disagreement with Fox and leave and make Superman.
Yeah.
I like Superman Returns more than most, but it is such a shame that, when I hear his ideas for X-Men 3, I'm like, oh, that could have been such a good film. And like the writer of First Class, ironically, was also one of the writers on X-Men 3. And so much of the during the press for this film has just been apologizing for X-Men 3. And I mean, it wasn't completely his fault, and I don't think Ratner is the guy that deserves all the blame either. But it's like there are like 8 different people that can get the blame for that film. But it is funny that Singer has come back, and after all the criticism that he's got over the years for leaving X-Men, for doing Superman, all that stuff, he made that kind of not very good Jack the Giant Killer film, and he comes back to X-Men, and he fits like a glove. And he proves that he is indeed a great filmmaker.
Yeah, and it feels like he should have never left.
Yeah. This is where he's most comfortable. You can tell.
So, it's really nice that we're gonna get more from him. But like I don't know. I'm hearing a lot of people saying, okay, so seeing this movie shows us what X3 could have been. And what's really interesting, of course, is that we got a really cool film here, but this would not have been. We wouldn't have never gotten a movie anything like this had it not been for the fact that he left. So I mean, it's kind of it's a great thing and a not so great thing. Because I'm not sure we would have ever gotten an adaptation of Days of Future Past if it hadn't been to fix continuity or something.
It's funny because I suggested Days of Future Past as the sequel to First Class. Like after First Class came out straight away, I was like, they should do Days of Future Past, and I didn't expect them to though, and I certainly didn't expect the film that we got. And I'm very relieved that we got that because it was such a fun ride, as well as being a very good film. And we were talking about Stryker earlier. I do want to say that moment where Wolverine's having all the flashbacks and they show Brian Cox morph into the actor who played Stryker in this film, and you hear Stryker yell, "Someone will finish what I started, Wolverine." I really loved that. I wanted to bring that up.
Well, and And like again with the ending of this movie, it's really hard not to just go into wild conjecture. It's like, was that did they throw that in there because Mystique's kind of gonna do that? Like, but then why did she do that? Like, I don't know. I want Mystique to do Weapon X. That's what I want. I want some crazy thing where Mystique starts Weapon X. And then it's just like the Weapon X we thought we might get that they totally butchered in Origins, except she's the one running it as Stryker. That's what I want.
Well, we can guarantee that we're not going to get a memory erasing bullet this
No,
time around.
That's probably not going to happen. In fact, what would be really funny is and I would hope that we wouldn't make a whole movie about it again.
Oh.
But what would be really funny is if you made that movie and then somebody shot him in the head and and they're like the memories won't grow back, and then he's like, well, yeah, they did that time I time traveled. Like,
my consciousness can heal. What do you think?
That's really good, Hugh Jackman. That sounds just like Ian McKellen.
That was not my Hugh Jackman impression. He's far more Australian sounding than I am.
Oh.
No, I figured, but I had to say that.
Hey, Shades, can I hear your Jack Nicholson impression?
I was trying to think of something to say. Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight, Agnew?
That's excellent!
Yeah.
Wow, it sounds just like him if he was the president.
It's like I'm Skyping with Nicholson.
It's like I'm Skyping with Nixonson.
Nixon, yeah, oh wow.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I'm done. Did anybody else have anything else you wanted to make sure that we said?
Yes, can we please not end it on that note?
All right, well, thanks everybody for listening. We sure appreciate it. All right, really quick final thoughts, like 1 sentence final thoughts. These are fun. Steve, what's your 1 sentence final thought?
It's a really fun movie. That's all I can say. It's weird because I was listening to you guys and I actually disagree on quite a few points because I don't think it's particularly great, but I still say it's really fun.
Well, then you should have jumped in more and argued with us, pal.
Yeah, you know, it's like a discussion or something.
Yeah, it's just fun listening also, you know.
Well, that's cool, but that's what you do when you press play on a video, not when you're in a Skype call.
I feel like that was my role back in 2012 when we did the Dark Knight Rises video. I was just listening because I disagreed a lot.
Yeah, kind of.
Well,
it's okay. I'll send you your consciousness back in time, and you can do this.
Okay, thank you. Well, me and Superhero Enthusiast did a discussion on this just the other night. So if anyone wants to listen to all my criticisms, it's in there.
I watched it this morning, actually.
Oh, cool.
It was very good, even though I don't agree with anything you said.
Thank you.
Those really well-formulated thoughts that I think are completely wrong.
I kept arguing with you the whole video, and you didn't listen to me at all. It was frustrating.
Alex.
I think despite, all the minor nitpicks and criticisms and stuff, this movie, really carried me along as far as the character and the emotional stuff goes, and it hit home, and it was very, very good in that respect, and it's kind of what I was hoping for going in. So for me, the film succeeded.
Dan.
I really like this movie. This is my favorite X-Men movie so far. Before that, it was First Class, and right under that was X2. Right under there. I like those two movies a lot, but this movie, I think it's my favorite out of all of them so far. It's great stuff.
And Shades.
I love this film, and I didn't think I'd get to see another X-Men epic like this again. And I enjoyed the heck out of it. A lot of fun.
Well, there you have it, folks. Feel free to leave comments, as always, of course, and tell us what you thought about the movie. Tell us if you want to make all those arguments that Steve chose to just not make, because he was having fun listening. And anyway, we sure appreciate you listening. And guys, thanks a bunch for being here. Wow, 6. I don't know if we've ever had 6 on a spoiler podcast. This might be our record.
Okay.
Yay!
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yay.
Oh, that's cool. I think it is.
It's almost like we're a team of people talking about the big team movie.
Ooh. I see what you did there.
See, this is even more meta than the movie itself. We're meta-ing about a meta movie.
That's a very Geekvolution thing to do, Dan.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
You know that better than most. Anyway, everybody, thanks again. We sure appreciate it. I'm Captain Logan, and this was TheRealManos.
Hi, I'm the Romanos.
And no, you have to say bye. We're leaving.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just time traveled.
Manos,
I can't wait to talk about Amazing Spider-Man 2. What a great film.
and we had Dan Torrey.
Where's the purple costume?
And we had Superhero Enthusiast.
Had you?
We had Beware the Steve Baxi.
Shit, I can't recall the last 2 hours.
and very very excitedly, we also had ShadesAtKnight.
My birthday is in August. If you want to get me a gift, you can get me a pair of future glasses.
Thanks again.